Silumgar, the Elder Dragon of Tarkir, is a creature born of ancient storms and primordial fury. A dragon of no small notoriety, his breath is a venomous, corrosive miasma that leaves ruin in its wake, and his mind, as sharp and unyielding as the claws of his kind, has been shaped by centuries of brutality, betrayal, and ambition. He is a being both feared and revered, a legend in the making whose name echoes through the jungles and swamps of Tarkir. But Silumgar is not simply a dragon. He is a force of nature, one who has been both elevated and undone by his own desires, his own hubris, and his own need to conquer. Silumgar's story, like all the dragons of Tarkir, begins in the tumultuous times before the Khanfal during the height of Ugin's dragon tempests. These wild, violent storms gave birth to the Dragonlords, immense, powerful creatures that terrorized the land, hoarding treasure and casting their shadows over the people of Tarkir. Silumgar, however, was different from his kin. He was a snake-headed beast with a hunger not only for gold, but for power, control, and fear. His breath, an acidic, poisonous cloud, was the harbinger of death, and his very presence was enough to send entire villages to ruin. He was as cruel as he was cunning, as destructive as the storms that birthed him. In the original timeline, the dragons' reign over Tarkir was absolute. They were the rulers, the conquerors, the unchallenged masters of the land, and Silumgar was no exception. With his brood of venomous, deadly dragons, he left a trail of death and devastation in his wake, unopposed and unfazed by the struggles of mortals. But power is a fickle thing, and in time the balance of Tarkir would shift. Ugin's death, an event that rippled through the very fabric of Tarkir's existence, heralded the fall of the dragons and the rise of the clans. In the ensuing chaos, Silumgar and his brood were defeated by the united forces of Tarkir's people. No new dragons were born from his line, and his once mighty brood crumbled to dust. His reign, short and brutal, came to a sudden violent end. It was in the river Marang, near the Moldafang Falls, that Silumgar met his end. There, the young Sultai Khan, likely the cruel and calculating Tasigur, ended the Elder Dragon's life. A fittingly brutal death for a Dragonlord who had built his legacy on bloodshed and treachery. The river, stained by Silumgar's blood, became a sacred site for the Sultai, a monument to their triumph over the great beast. Silumgar's name, once whispered in terror, became little more than a shadow in the history of Tarkir, lost to time as the Sultai emerged victorious and the dragons faded into myth. But in the alternate timeline, one shaped by forces beyond the control of any mortal being, the world of Tarkir would see a very different fate for Silumgar. The death of Ugin and the rise of the Khans had changed everything, and the dragons were not so easily erased from the tapestry of existence. In this timeline, Silumgar's brood did not fade into obscurity. Instead, they were drawn back to life, summoned by the very forces that had once shaped them. The Khan Tasigur, in his arrogance and betrayal, made a fateful decision, one that would ultimately bind him to Silumgar forever. Tasigur, a Khan known for his manipulation and treachery, offended both the Rakshasa and the Nagas, causing them to abandon the Sultai. In the wake of this betrayal, the Khan had no choice but to turn to Silumgar, hoping to secure the support of the dragon and his brood. A pact was struck between the Khan and the Elder Dragon, one that would alter the course of Tarkir's future. But Tasigur, ever the deceiver, would prove to be his own undoing. In an act of unimaginable hubris, Tasigur betrayed the other Khans, revealing the location of their secret meeting to Silumgar. The Khan, in his ambition, thought he would be rewarded with power and prestige under Silumgar's rule, but he could not have been more wrong. Instead, he was made into a symbol, a living trophy to display Silumgar's dominance over the Khans and the entire Sultai. Tasigur became little more than a pet, his body worn as a pendant by the dragon, a reminder of the Khan's foolishness and the dragon's unyielding control. Even 1,000 years later, Silumgar still clung to his prize, wearing Tasigur as a constant reminder of his victory over the once mighty Khan. Silumgar's reign in this alternate timeline was not one of ease. His clan, Clan Silumgar, was now populated by the undead, vile, unholy creatures who served their master with unquestioning loyalty. But they were not as many as the living followers of other Dragonlords. What they lacked in numbers, however, they made up for in ruthlessness. Silumgar's underlings, ever eager to gain favor, engaged in constant power struggles, assassination and extortion to climb the ladder of influence. The Naga, ever the sycophants, were among the quickest to rise to the top, though they too were quick to abuse the privileges they had earned. It was a world of cruelty and treachery, where survival meant manipulating and murdering those beneath you, and even those above you if necessary. When Silumgar sought to strike fear into the hearts of his enemies, he called upon his Deathbringer dragons. These abominable creatures, spewing clouds of poisonous gas and streams of caustic acid, were capable of choking entire armies with their deadly breath. Necromancer dragons, capable of drawing power from the dead, further enhanced the Dragonlord's influence, their magic capable of raising the fallen and bending them to his will. Silumgar's enemies were given no quarter, no mercy. His reign was absolute, but it was not without its cracks. Paranoia gnawed at Silumgar's mind. He feared losing his hard-won power, his precious dominion to Kolagan or the Rakshasa. His suspicions grew ever deeper, and those who sought to undermine or manipulate him quickly found themselves at the end of his wrath. When Silumgar discovered treachery, his response was swift, brutal, and unrelenting. Entire networks were rooted out, destroyed, and punished for even the slightest hint of disloyalty. To keep his mind off these dark thoughts, the people around him held festivals and rites, distractions meant to soothe the mind of a Dragonlord whose paranoia could lead him to kill even his closest subjects. Silumgar, in the end, is a creature of contradictions. He is both revered and feared, his name both a whisper of awe and a curse. His brood, once a symbol of strength and terror, has become a twisted reflection of his own nature, a legacy of death, power, and corruption. And while the world of Tarkir moves ever forward, Silumgar's shadow lingers, a reminder that power, once seized, is not easily relinquished.